All right. Good evening, everybody. Warm welcome. Once again, thank you for joining the session. It's overwhelming to see so many people have joined the session. I was actually asking Samhita if we could do it in person because there's nothing that could replace an in-person meeting. And I think it's a long time since, we have reverted to in-person, and this doing it online, I'm doing after some time. So the ground rule remains the same. So if you can't hear me, see my screen, see my video, audio, somebody have to interrupt and tell me. Otherwise, I'm assuming it's all clear and I'm going to proceed. Keep your questions coming. I'll keep the session for about 35 to 40 minutes, and we can discuss after the session. In between, I may not be able to see the questions. I'll take it up towards the end. I hope people who have attended earlier sessions, we have interacted. I don't know if there are repeat audience, but anyway, the discussion today is, I think, AI. The theme itself is AI for this entire week that they are having, and I saw the various other speakers, and I would also join to listen and learn from my fellow speakers. So the theme being AI, the topics that I will be covering are about I'll keep it generic, and I'll see how I can add value to the startup ecosystem to see how you can make use of AI as part of your work, whatever you're doing. So the topics will be like to set the stage, the industrial revolution itself, what has happened in history from 1.0 to 5.0, where we are today, and then talk about AI. What are some myths? There are many. Maybe I'll just take 4 points for each of that. I'll talk about some myths, some fears that all of us have, and in spite of those fears, what are the promises that lie ahead of us and how we can make use of it. And then the last section I have for startups, some tips for innovation. All of us want to innovate and come up with ideas and do a lot of innovative work. Come on, who doesn't want to innovate? So based on our own experiences, maybe I'll be sharing some 2 tips on what you have to keep in mind. So that's how generic I've kept the presentation flow itself as. So moving on, the industrial revolution, if we have to talk in history from where it started, the technology evolutions, technologies keep changing. We all say that. So the first one, Industry 1.0, these are not new. People know this. I'm just talking about it to set the context of our talk today. So Industry 1.0 is maybe 1700s and 1800s, during that time frame where machines with steam power, with the weaving loom, machinery was picking up to do work. And that was the first revolution called as the Industry 1.0 revolution. We used machines for doing jobs rather than humans doing it. And then the second revolution, 100 years. It took almost a century to come up with another industrial revolution where electricity played a major role, and a lot of mass production, the assembly lines where we used to do things in bulk using electricity as a major source of power. That became the Industry 2.0. And then came Industry 3.0, which is automation. So computers, electronics, we can do a lot of automation. So the automations that we are talking about today are not part of 5.0. It is all Industry 3.0 that came into picture, where computers, electronics, and automation played a major role, and that became a revolution on its own. And then the Industry 4.0, I'll talk about the timeline further. So this is about digital. So the software as a service model, the cloud that picked up. So the infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, IoT devices, Internet of Things, and networks, all this formed another revolution, and that became Industry 4.0. Currently, we are in Industry 5.0, where it is AI, lot of personalization, customizations, collaborations, the artificial intelligence that is playing a major role in transforming each and every industry around us. We are calling it another revolution by itself. So if you see the timeline, as I was saying, 1800s, it's mechanization. And it took 100 years, 1900s, it's electrification. And then it took 100 years for automation, software, which is 2000s. If you see the next, that from 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 to 4.0 was within 10 years, it's a decade, digitization picked up. And another 10 years, we are in the personalization period now where AI is ruling the world. So that is the amount of technology innovations that are happening for it to be called as a revolution itself. So that's the impact that AI as a whole is having in our day-to-day lives and in the industries and commodities around us. So with that background, before I get into the actual AI itself on what are some of the myths and fears and promises, as I was, this is something that I have talked earlier also in some other sessions, but I thought this is relevant and I wanted to bring it here. Gartner has introduced a hype cycle for any technology. So I'll be talking about the hype cycle for AI as a technology, AI technology itself that was released sometime last year. And there are 5 phases in each of these hype cycles. And it goes like this. The phase 1 is called as the innovation trigger. It's more like where any new technology is booming and everybody is talking about it. The media is making hype around that technology, like how ChatGPT was being talked, is being talked now. All of us would have tried our hands on that. So that is the innovation trigger phase. There is no viable commercial product available, but a lot of hype around the technology. Everybody is talking around it as the innovation trigger phase. The second phase is the peak of inflated expectation. So that's a phase where because so many people have talked about it, so much hype around it, people start to implement it and see some success. Maybe not on a longer term, but the initial success is seen and products are coming out of the technology. So that's the peak of the inflated expectation as a second phase. The third phase is the trough of disillusionment, it's called. It is like where the interest fades off and more than the experiments fail. A lot of experiments happen, but experiments fail. And more than the success, there are failures that are seen around it. There are a lot of companies that don't want to invest on these technologies. Even enterprises would want to keep away from it. So that is a downtime. That's a trough of disillusionment that happens. That's the phase 3. And then the phase 4, where the slope of enlightenment. In spite of all that, people have fine-tuned and they are seeing some progress. Second generation, third generation products using the technologies have come up and they are seeing a mature version and seeing more success out of it. And that's the slope of enlightenment. And the last phase is the plateau of productivity, which is, it's almost any technology is mature and it becomes part of our day-to-day activities. So this is typically the phase from phase 1 to phase 5 for any technology. And this is the Gartner's dot graph for AI as a technology. So if you see in this graph, there are so many components that are being discussed and displayed. And you see the timeline versus the expectation. And there is also the blue, light blue and dark blue color to indicate how much time it takes. Some technologies take 2 to 5 years for it to reach the plateau stage. Plateau is where we want it to reach so that everybody adopts and uses it. And some of them take, in dark blue, it takes 5 to 10 years to reach the plateau. You can just read through it. This is available in Gartner website itself. And there are some things like the autonomous vehicles that takes more than 10 years to reach the plateau stage. So we have a long way to go. There is, we are in different phases, at least with respect to AI and the technology that we are using. So it's not something that we have to fear about immediately and start worrying about it, but we have to look into it. And this gives a better perspective of where we are and what's the timeline we have and what we need to do. So I thought I'll give this as a prelude before I get into the actual myths that I wanted to talk about. So the next section will be on what are some of the myths that I'll be taking only 4 points in each of this. And mostly it's not something new. You all know these things, but I will just add examples from what we have used at Zoho and what we see, how we can overcome based on my experience of working in these technologies. and nothing in any specific order. I've just numbered them. That's all. Okay. And yeah, obviously the first one is, the first myth is AI learns on its own and can do magic. Many people think this. I have interacted with our customers who wanted to include, and partners who wanted to include AI as part of their work. Even startups, you want to include the technology as part of your work. It cannot do things on its own. It does have to be trained. So one sentence that I always keep talking about with respect to AI is, the AI is only as good or as bad as how it is programmed. If you feed in with garbage data, you will only get garbage out. So it has to be trained properly. It's only good, as good or as bad as the human behind it. It does not have an intelligence of its own. It's only artificial intelligence. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. So it cannot learn on its own. It has to be trained. Whatever domain you're using, or whatever industry that you are planning to use, and whatever software you're using, apply it appropriately and train it properly. Then this is just a myth. So you can just overcome it. It cannot do magic. You have to program it to do magic. That's number one. Number two, a lot of people think that you need to be machine learning experts, data scientists, and that you need to have huge budgets to implement AI in business. This is again a myth, I would say, because see, again, I would take Zoho itself as an example. We do invest a lot in R&D. It's not that we have all the experts, data scientists that we have recruited and have in-house to do all these work. All the work that we do at our AI lab are all software engineers. Maybe when we started, we didn't know what is the technology at all. We trained ourselves, we learned about it, we spend the time that is required to gain that expertise and make use of it. So that's something people think when they want to start their AI activities. It is that, okay, I have to go look out for specialist data scientists in the field and join them as part of my team. No. You only need to have that interest to learn new things and identify or read about the technologies and see how they can be used in your product or in your whatever you're building. So that is what is important. It's not that you need to be an expert. You can develop the expertise. Just keep that in mind. The next one is, AI will only replace mundane, regular jobs. This is something, again, I've seen people saying, where do I apply AI in my industry? It's only for automating the regular jobs. That's automation. AI is different from automation. There is a subtle, or there are a lot of differences. It's not just for doing repetitive jobs. It can help if it is trained properly. It can help in a lot more ways for you to give predictive analysis. So if you have to give some examples in our product Site 24/7 itself, where we use AI for a lot of predictive analysis based on the data that we have in the system. You can train the system to make sure that if you have to be specific on the example, Site 24/7 is a monitoring product. So we do collect a lot of metrics that are required for the performance of the system. So suppose your CPU utilization of your machine, I'm talking about machines, or your disk utilization, or for your response time of your web transaction that you're having. I'm not sure if all of you are having a software startup, but whatever startup you have, you will definitely need a website. I have talked about this in the first session 2 years back that I gave, the business importance of having a website or monitoring for startups. So in such scenarios, you may have to read the data, or based on the data that you have of the response time, suddenly you see a spike in the response time. You always have your website to be responding in 4 milliseconds or 5 milliseconds, and suddenly there is 20 milliseconds it's taking. It's an anomaly. So it's not a mundane job, but it's a intelligence that the engine can apply and give you a notification that something is wrong. So this is just one example. In each of your fields, there are so many examples where you can train properly the system and make sure that you are able to use it in a proper way. And the other myth is AI will replace you. I should call this as a fear. This is the first fear that I'll be talking next also. AI will replace human. It's not that AI will replace human. If you have listened to, I've listened to a lot of podcasts and read a lot of interviews. People, you know that people have said it is the human who has the knowledge of AI will replace another human. The system as such, the AI engine cannot replace. So upskilling is important. You have to make sure you upskill yourself to know what's happening in the industry or in the technology so that you can use the technology. You just have to spend the time. Anything and everything can be learned. So this is again another myth that generally people talk about. So we'll move on to, those are some 4 myths that we talked about. What are some of the fears that people have? So the first one is actually related to the myth itself, AI will take away my job. In fact, many people, including me, we would have thought, what will I do if all these jobs are being automated or done by machine? Where will we go? There is, in fact, a website that talks about, you can go and search, will robo take away my job.com or something like that. And you go and feed in the work that you do, the profession, teaching profession, or you are a manufacturer, you are in manufacturing industry, or you are a software engineer, you are a quality analyst, you are a marketer. You feed in those professions, it will tell you what percentage of jobs will be taken away by AI. There is a website for that. But you have to keep in mind, it's again to do with the upskilling. And there are Gartner surveys that says that there will be some jobs that are taken away, but the number of jobs that's going to be introduced because of a new technology, particularly AI, is more than the jobs that will be taken away. So you want to be a person who's in that identifying the new job opportunities, upskill yourself, learn the technology. You will be able to see how you can find new jobs and use it in your work. So this is the fear that you can easily overcome. And the other fear that is generally talked about is AI will add to income inequality. What I mean here by this is there is always this fear that people, the data scientists or people who have AI knowledge will always have more income, and and people who don't have those skills are going to be less paid. That there is some amount of fear that lies around this area. But again, if we think deeper into it, any product or any software particularly, or any technology, it's not just the core technology that plays that forms the part of your product. There are so many other fields. Take for example a software that you're building itself. There are so many other things that people have to do. There has to be marketing, there has to be communication, managerial communication, that is important, to talk with your customers and to look at what are the support. You have to talk with your customers, resolve their problems, and then you have to write about the product, whatever you want. Today, a lot of writing is also done using ChatGPT. We don't know what is human written and what is bot written. I'll talk about that fear later. That's an actual fear that we need to have. But if you see this income inequality with respect to a job, that a person who has an AI knowledge with respect, particularly with a developer versus a marketer or a designer, I'm sure in all these fields also, be it marketing, be it design, visual design, or be it in support, there are in all these areas, whatever role you play, whatever profession you are in, you can make use of the technology and make sure you get paid equally. So the inequality is just a fear. It's not just only the developers who have to learn about AI. It is in the hands of every profession. You have to see how you can apply the technology, then you are at top of your profession. So this fear actually we can overcome. The next two is a little tricky. We'll have to be really cautious about. And one of that is AI will create misinformation and cyber warfare. This is what I've been talking about. See, today, if you see, there is so much information available. We don't know if it is a human written or a bot written. Particularly after the generative AI, ChatGPT has come in, we have seen a lot of examples where it is being used from school children. I prevent my children from using it, but I know they come up with use cases of how ChatGPT can generate all the whatever is required for their work. And there are also websites that can remove the plagiarism and give you and make it look as if it is newly written. Those are some of the fears. And this is the fear is more like if it could be used in a negative way to defame people. Political, I mean, there are a lot is being discussed about the policies, political influences. It could be badly used to create, defame a person, because we don't know if that is true. Not even just for in the way people write, even in the way people talk. The same, now I'm presenting through a video conference. This can easily be mimicked using technology and look as if I am talking, and somebody else can give some other content also. That is actually a fear. That we don't want that to happen. That's the negative side. We have to be cautious about what it can do. I don't know how we'll be overcoming this, but this we have to be cautious about, believing in what we see and what we hear, unless it is in person, human to human. So that's a negative side, which is a fear which we have to be cautious about. I'm just leaving it open because I don't have a solution for this, or I don't know a solution for this. The next one is about, this is even more dangerous. AI will alter or play with the emotions of humans. We are seeing such things happening. There are situations where people get emotionally connected, and we have seen examples or read examples of people who lose jobs because of emotional connect that they have with the AI engine. Today, if you see, you go and search, these are all the ill effects or the negative side of it. There are a lot of positives, which we will talk in the promises section. But this particularly, this one, I mean, I am very afraid of, I should say, because today, if you see, you go search for something, the next moment you do something in your mobile or tablet or whatever you do, you'll be filled with ads. Okay, that's a positive side. People want to sell something and they add it. But there have been instances where I don't know if it is just a illusion that I had. I think of something, I see ads related to that. I don't know. I've discussed with friends and they also felt the same. I mean, that's something dangerous. Things can't happen. That's not true, but imagine if something like that happens, what will happen to humanity? I mean, AI cannot play with the emotions. It will create a false intimacy of you liking something, and your thought process will be, altered by AI. Is a fear. It is dangerous. So I encourage this you can see in the next generation of kids as well. Most of the time, I mean, they play online games and all is something different. Even for a physical game, to play, cricket or football, they do it online rather than going and doing it in person. So it is in our hands to, see to that the next generation don't get caught like this. There are so much bad, as much as technology has a positive side, there are negative sides, which is really fearful. We have to be cautious about them. This is again the danger that I don't want to touch upon. That's a fear that people have. So those are some of the fears that we talked about. So moving on to the promises section. So what are some of the promises in spite of all the negatives or negativity that we see around? Any technology, we can't just say that it's filled with negativity or there are so many things false about it, negative about it, I don't want to know about. No, there are positives. We just have to see how we have to use it in a positive side, and that's the promise that's lying ahead of us, and particularly with respect to AI. So the first thing is AI can be used effectively in many fields. You take any field around us, it could be your for education or retail, manufacturing, healthcare and all. There is so much that it can be used to detect some of the diseases which otherwise it's not possible to detect. That's serving to the humanity. So technology should be used in a way it will make positive impact to humanity around. That's something we have to look into. And in transportation or cybersecurity, construction, take any field around you. You name a field, AI can be used. So whatever startup you are coming up with, you see if there is a relevant use case where you can inbuild AI into it and make sure that you make the life of your customers easy. There is possibility. Just that you have to understand what is available and see how you can use it. It's not that everybody has to use it. If there is a use case, you have to definitely use it. That's what I'm trying to say. And the second promise is AI is only just an enabler. The human element of strategic thinking or contextual decision making will still exist. It's not that everything the AI can do. I can give you some examples. AI enthusiasts are trying to build these also into the engine, But I'm sure how much ever we try to build, I think there has to be a place, there has to be a line drawn where there are human elements involved. Today, if you see, you can also search for this and see, if you give the AI engine these 4 pictures, the top one is, it will predict for predicting. So it will predict this, the first one that I'm showing here also as a cow, and this also as a cow, because the system has been fed into the thing. The moment it sees a grassland and a 4-legged animal, a lot of systems could fail and say this is a cow, but that's a camel over there in a grassland. Similarly, the second 2 pictures, the last 2 pictures where the system will predict it as camel because there is a desert behind. Even though the cow is there, a lot of systems will fail and it will predict it as a camel. So that is how it is today, at least today. But people are trying, AI experts are trying to see how we can fix this and make it foolproof and make predictions smart. But I would say there has, whatever it is, some element of human contextual linking is required. By the way, these images, you won't believe, I just used AI design tool to get these images. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's not actual picture, and it is not a photoshopped version taking and placing also. It's natural language processing to image construction. Adobe does that. You just go type it as a cow on a grass field, camel on a grass field, cow on a desert, camel on a desert. It will give you these photos, not even pictures. It will look like real photos. So such things are possible in using AI. Until you say it is actually taken or generated, we will never know. So that's how it is. But all that I'm trying to say is, today there is still human element involved for contextual meaning. And that's a promise which we should keep it up and take it forward. And the other one is about we are living in this era of citizen coders. People don't take actually what the system gives. Everyone will have their own personalization. It's not that AI can do everything for you. There can be certain things which, because each individual's requirement will vary, even for the same product, each individual's requirement will vary. They don't want to see, one person don't want to see the UI exactly same like how the other person does it. So don't try to apply automation or apply AI on everywhere. There could be some places where you'll have to just leave it to the user to do the customizations themselves. So I get reminded of this one quote that I keep referring to wherever I talk. And this is from the professor Donald Knuth. He's a computer science professor, and he says, premature optimization is the root of all evil. So this is something important that we have to keep in mind. A lot of time what we try to do is we wanted to use the technology and automate everything that is available and do. There could be some scenarios where it is not required. It's not that somebody else is using it in the same domain. You should also be using it for your thing. See if your use case requires an automation. You go try automating or optimizing, automating something which is not optimal. It's going to be dangerous, because there is always this saying, practice makes perfection. But if you're doing a practice which is a wrong practice, it'll only make a wrong permanence. It doesn't give in a right way. So what you need to do is, or what you need to understand is, you see if the use case is relevant. Only if it is relevant and only if it is required, you go and apply the technology. Otherwise, leave it to customers. They will be able to do. So that's something that we have to keep in mind. It's not that everything needs to be done the AI way. And the last promise that I want to talk about is the responsible AI. So I like to, there is so much that we talk about AI, but the responsibility lies in your hand. Before I talk about the responsibility, I thought I'll give a quick story that I thought it will be relevant. I'm sure many of you will know this story. In fact, there is this story, I'll just read it out. There is a story about 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. So there was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry with that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do that. So it ended up that everybody blamed somebody and nobody did what anybody could have done. So it might look tricky, but what I'm trying to say here is the responsibility that you have. When you are using a technology, whatever data you collect, you are responsible for the customer's data that you're collecting. You can't just say, no, I'm just using the another software. I'm just using the algorithm that is given by some third party. So it is left to them to take care. No, you can't just put that blame on or put that responsibility to others. You have to be responsible for whatever you do, comply with the compliances that are available. So those are some of the things which if we do, we will be able to use it in a positive way. So the need of the hour is the government policies, because we can't just say that we don't want technologies. We need technologies, but how much are we using it in a right sense is what is important, because we saw so many fears, so many negatives. In spite of that, how do we make use of it in a positive sense? There has to be some government policies like the UPI that we have, ONDC. I saw that there is a session by ONDC, the Open Network for Digital Commerce, that is available on the 4th day or something. I would love to listen to that. But such similar policies are required. In one of the recent interviews, our CEO Sridhar Vembu also talked about this, and he also said that there are other leaders who are talking about and return to governments asking for bringing in open policies and standards for using AI, because that is the need of the hour. If we don't have them, it's going to be catastrophic. We don't know what negativity it will bring and what dangers it will do to humanity around. So there has to be any technology. That's why if you see a lot of, even in this, when we use it in the cloud, there are a lot of compliance and securities compliance in place to ensure that the data security is taken care, at least to prevent cyber crimes from happening and data thefts from happening. So that is important. Similarly for AI also, people, leaders around the world are talking about how we can bring in some government policies which the players will adopt to when they use AI in their products. So that is something that's need of the hour. So these are about the myths, the fears and the promises that I had to talk about. How much time am I left with? I'll take maybe another 5 minutes or so. Is that fine?
Yes, that's completely fine. You can actually, you can take 5 to 10 minutes.
5 to 10 minutes. Yeah, fine. Yeah. Because I don't know how the flow will be. So I'll always have content to deliver. Depending on the time, I'll cut short towards the end. That's how I generally do.
And no, I think this is great content. We have 5 to 10 minutes more, following which we can open the floor up to Q&A.
Sure. So now we have talked about AI and the myth, fear, and promises. Fear is actually fearful. Let's leave all that. I'll focus on startups. Most of you are startups. I'll be sharing 2 tips for innovation or whatever you want to do. So when we talk about tips, the first one is you should keep asking questions. I'm sure you all know this. Asking why matters. Start with the why is a book, which is my favorite. Most of you would have read it also. Anything that you take, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Do I really have to use this technology? When you keep asking that questions, because there could be some scenario where there are so many players in this market, but why I should do this particular piece. You drill down and they say in 5 whys, you will be able to find out the actual reason what has happened. And this is a story that I have read earlier. I'm just sharing it to give the importance of why matters. So there is this famous Washington Monument, all of us know, and the walls of the monument were deteriorating. So there was a person who came to inspect that wall, and they asked, okay, why? I mean, we just have to paint it. Every time they have to spend a lot for painting. So the question was, why are the stones deteriorating? That's the first why that the inspector, audit person asked. Then they said, we are using high-powered washing spray every 2 weeks once on this wall. So that's why the shine is deteriorating. Okay, he could have left there. But again, the question continues. Why are we using high-powered washing spray every 2 weeks? What's the need for it? And then they found out because there is so much of birds around here, and they are famous for doing all these, their favorite work. And we have to clean this. So that's why we are using high-powered spray. Then the question continues, why are there so many birds? Do I ask this question? Where do I stop this? So you have to continue until you find out the actual reason. Why are there so many birds? Because there are so many spiders around here. This is a special type of spider that the bird is attracted towards. Then the question continues, why are there so many spiders? The fourth why. And then there are so many insects around here. The spider is coming for the insect, the birds are coming for the spider. Why are there so many insects? Because the light is shining so high. And they found out, they switched on the light even before sunset. The light was so bright, the insects were attracted towards this place. And then that's why the whole chain happened. So the fix was actually, they have to switch on the light well after sunset, not before that. Instead, I mean, until you ask this 5 whys, you wouldn't find the root cause. So this just to tell you why this why is important. So you keep, in anything that you do, keep asking why we have to do that. You'll be able to find out exactly the root cause or the crux of why you're doing it. And that's what will help you find the actual problem that you want to solve. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. The second one, I'm not going to get into details because this is another book that will take another 15 minutes. I'll just give you, there is this book by Kenneth O. Stanley, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. He's again a great computer scientist who has worked on AI, and he gives a lot of, he's an artificial intelligence professor. There is a 45-minute video that talks about why greatness cannot be planned. On the whole book was written based on pickbreeder.org, inspired by how organisms evolve, complexify in nature. So I'll not get into the details of this, but I'll just share the crux alone. But I would recommend you go listen to this 45-minute video. You will get a lot of ideas, even if you're not able to read that book. The crux is when you are in a team. So I'll just skip these portions because I just want to give you the crux of that one. This will take a lot of time. Yeah, the crux of that whole book is about, you have to give individuals their identity. You can't force somebody, you can't define a particular goal and say, I want to come up with a creative product. Sit together and come up with a creative product. Creativity doesn't happen like that. You have to give individuals their own time to come up with creative things. Is number one. Number two, a lot of times people think that I want to start something new. Let me start from scratch. That's not the idea at all. This whole website talks about people do some things and they leave it back for others to continue from where they have left. So that is important. Maybe you want to do something in one particular area. First, look for what are some of the things that are already available and see if you can take from where somebody else have left and continue doing from there. It's not that always all innovations happen starting from scratch. You must be able to understand, analyze what is available and start from where somebody else have left. And whatever work or thesis you do, you also leave it for somebody else to pick up from there and take it forward. That is how innovations and creativity happens. A lot of time I see people who come and talk to me in college events that I go saying that I want to start something fresh. And even people who come join our work, they say, I want to only work on new products. Then who will work on the existing products? So that's a mind shift change that is required, where you should do it interesting. You should make it interesting, but make sure you are looking for things that are already available and see if you can enhance on top of that. So those two are the major takeaway from that whole series. You can just go through that later. So that's about it. Maybe if it was an in-person meeting, this would have been made very interesting. So if you look at this skyline, which city is the skyline from? If I ask, that'll be different ideas. I'll just have to show the answers now itself. Maybe some of you may be able to find out, some may not. But when I show this, all of us will be able to say it's a New York. Similarly, which city is this skyline from? I get different answers. But if when I show the thing that is the, what is that? The monument, iconic monument, people will be able to say what it is. I mean, which stands out from the other one, Paris. Which city is the skyline from? Some of you may be able to say, but when I show the next one, Sydney. So what I'm trying to say here is, whatever you want to do, maybe there are other players in your startup area, but you need to find out that one niche or one important USP for you and make sure you stand out. That is how you will be able to win competition. So standing out is what is outstanding. You either be first in the market or be the best in the market. See what you can do for that. And if you drill down deeper, spend the time and energy that is required, things don't happen overnight. We have seen in that hype graph itself. There are some technologies that take 10 years, more than 10 years to reach the plateau. So you can't expect things to happen, whatever you want to start to happen overnight. It will take time. We have to be patient. But there is a borderline. How long can we wait? Can we wait for 5 years? No. You should have some minimum goals or minimum viable product for you to showcase, and make sure you're able to get some features that are outstanding for you to showcase against your competition by bringing in all the technologies, and make sure you are passing that personalization to your customers and make them feel happy about using your product. There are so many things which you can outstand. It's not just with features. By great customer service, you can outstand your competition. So those are some things which you have to keep in mind. So the 2 tips that we talked about innovation is keep asking why, and see what is, on the book itself, Why Greatness Cannot Be Planned. You just go through that video. Apologies, I'm not able to explain that in detail because that will take more time. Okay, so with that, I've come to the end of the session. We just talked about the AI, the myth and the fears, how we can overcome it, and the promises that are there lying ahead of us, and the importance of leaders talking about bringing in policies so that the AI itself is used, the technology is used in a right way. That's important. And startups, there is so much that you can do. Find out what you want to do and make sure you use the technology rightly in your domain, in your product, and make sure you see success in whatever you do. Thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Raji. We'll go ahead and open for Q&A. There are a couple of questions in the Q&A section. We'll maybe give people a couple of minutes to also, put their questions in the section. In the meantime, I'll just go through and ask a couple of questions. We can also maybe unmute some folks. Yeah, I think a couple of questions are for your deck and also the link and the link for the book and the video. So maybe we could put that in the chat in the meantime. Okay. So Uday, when you were speaking and, when you were presenting, had a question. He asked you, what was the prerequisite for AI? Is it data? And I think that's a kind of vague question. So Uday, if you could maybe provide a little bit more context as to what is it specifically you're asking, a prerequisite in terms of, we could give you a better targeted answer.
Okay, maybe whatever I understood, what is the prerequisite for AI? It is, what he's asking is, maybe based on my understanding, we have been talking about training. It's only as good as how it is programmed. So those were some things that I talked about. So the prerequisite is, in most cases, it is data. We can say it is data, but depends on where you're using it and what is the type of data that you are having. At the end of the day, it's all mathematical models and the petabytes of data. Data is one terminology, one word that covers the entire information that is available. The processed information is data. You take anything, any field or any domain or any software, there is underlying is data. So that has to be trained in a way that it could make sense, is what is a prerequisite for AI. You need data.
Perfect. Okay. And any use cases that come to mind for AI in the retail domain? Ravi has asked this question.
Retail domain. There are a lot of use cases. All that we are seeing, see, retail is online purchasing, whatever we do. So all that we see today, if you go do online shopping today, we are talking about online shopping data, you go purchase something, you get a lot of information as to users who have purchased this, have brought these also. And this is a combination that generally you purchase. You go add it to a software, add it to your cart and leave it. You get a mail saying that you have added something to the cart. You have not completed your purchase. You get so much information when you do some online retail. All these are underlying is the engine processes the data depending on, and people who bought this also bought this. All those suggestions are all AI driven. And that's what I was saying. Sometimes we are afraid of going and searching something because you will be filled with ads. You don't even know from where they are picking up the data from. You make a phone call. Sometimes the phone numbers are also linked in a lot of places. You make a call and talk to someone to inquire about something. In your web portal, you get the ads. When you open up anything to search, you get ads. Such is what is the links and the data collection happens. You won't believe how much of data knowingly or unknowingly we are feeding to the system using our day-to-day activities. If you are a person who's wearing a smart watch and you are going for a walk, wherever you traveled, it will give you, all those are data. So when you drive in your car, I was actually surprised, or I don't know if it is a positive or negative. Generally, when you drive and your car GPS and your phone are linked, you go somewhere and then you stop the car and then you restart it. It will give you a notification saying 10 minutes to home. It decides that you're going back home. It doesn't give you that notification when you start your car from your home. All these are being tracked. And the surprise for me was when I went to these are some things which can happen when you go to a known place. Okay. Typically you go, Sundays I go drop my son in his class and then pick him up. All these are known places. You travel to an unknown, I travel to an unknown place. It's the first time I'm traveling to that city itself. And I parked my car somewhere. I don't want to miss it. So I marked the location in my map that I have parked here. The next time I parked in another place to have a tea, it gave me a suggestion. Do you want to mark your location in the map? All these are AI. So retail, there is so much that it can do.
Awesome. Thank you. So there's a question from Vinya in the chat. She's asked, do you recommend a course or a resource that she can use to understand how they can use AI? They're building a coaching venture in education.
Okay.
And this question has also come up in another form, saying any AI training you would recommend for everyone in general.
Honestly, I should say I don't know, because I've not undergone any courses. So generally, Coursera has some courses some of our people register to and learn about it. I would say, I wouldn't recommend any paid course at all. If Coursera should have definitely some materials available, or you can generally search for, you want to use it in education. So whatever domain you want to use it in, just spend some time and see what are some use cases others have used it. That's what I said. So it's not that we are trying to solve something of our own. There are people, this often our CEO says, when you say, okay, I've come up with a great idea, he'll say, no, there are 100 people already thinking about this idea. And there are 200 people who have already implemented it. So that is how the industry is. Go look for what is already available. All that is required is we need to sit and spend time and look at what is already available. If you are looking at an education domain, or you want to, any other domain you want to, read through what are other people's, what are other experts, what are other competition who have done in this, and what are the algorithms or technologies or what they have used. And by that, we will get some links on what we need to study, and will this use case make relevance for us also in the product that we are building. You can come up with such things. So honestly, I don't have a direct answer for if you have to go through any course, but I would generally recommend this. First, look out for what others have done in that particular field and see how you can use that in yours.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Another question that we have, sort of similar or recurring theme, is but Ankur has asked, they've had a startup, they want to create a generative AI platform as a subset of ChatGPT. For example, like ChatGPT for EdTech, what is the way to start, considering founders maybe from a non-tech background?
Okay. So it's not that just you who's trying to do an equivalent of generative AI, chat GPT. As I said, there will be 100 people who will be trying to do it. So I mean, tech background, non-tech background, it's all in how we see things. It's basically we need to understand, even though you're from a non-tech background, just a similar thing. You look at what ChatGPT can do. You create an account or try to use the APIs. So what is an API? So go look at how basically you can do, you can use that and fetch it. And instead of using it in a OpenAI ChatGPT website, how can you generate the same thing in your own system? First step, take simple steps. If you see, I have to build an equivalent learning portal or LLM model for like ChatGPT in my system. You take that's a long-term goal. Look at it, break it down and take one step at a time. What is the API used? Or if you're a non-tech person, you don't know what is an API at all, how to invoke an API and how to fetch data, where do you store it? Take one step at a time and learn, you will be able to see. And it's not that only you who's trying to build an equivalent of ChatGPT, that every other organization is trying to build. And I think we are all in that. If I have to put it in that height graph, all of us are in the first initial stage. To reach to the plateau, it will take a lot of time.
Perfect. So there are a couple of other questions, with respect to AI and the edtech industry. So I'll go ahead and take them now, since we're on the theme of it anyway. Megha has asked, how do you see AI changing the edtech industry?
EdTech industry, education, it does have an impact in every other industry. So education industry, if you see, there are two ways we can see this as. One is how teachers are using it to the benefit and in their day-to-day teaching. Maybe a lot of it, or at least a few things could be, use AI to give some examples in a nice way, because a lot of classrooms now have smart boards. They can make use of this in their teaching, depending on the infrastructure that the school has. So, and there are, that's on the, teacher side. And there are a lot of, students use it as something different. Irrespective of teacher saying it or not, nowadays the next generation kids are smart. They can understand, they can know things, they will use it. So the other thing could be, it's again the use cases is what I would say. So for education, if it's an edtech industry, so you have to use it for training, or you have to use it for answering some questions, or you can even use it for setting some model papers. Depending on the papers that are already available, you can come up with new questions. Nowadays, if you see, children, teachers also refer somewhere and they try to just change the number and set the question. That it's not sufficient. Maybe you'll have to you make use of the technology and come up with setting up question papers, so that will be easy for the children. So the use cases will vary. For education system, what are the use cases? How the technology could be used is what we have to see.
Right, and of course.
They will be able to give better answers than me is what I think. The use cases part. So once you know the use cases, it's just have to use the technology and automate it. If you ask me from a monitoring part or from a software IT industry, I can give 100 use cases. So people who are in that industry, any industry for that matter, they know the use cases. Maybe the startup part is you will have to talk with them, get the use cases, see how you can use it using software and use the technology and give it to them. So that's what you have to do.
All right. And Gaurav has a question saying, he's asked, what strategy should a startup while building solutions sort of employ when they do not have access to a large data set and bigger computations compared to bigger corporations?
That's a problem which many people will have. And a lot of time to start with, we may not have a larger data set. One thing that I generally tell my team is, don't wait for an actual larger data set. You know the schema. Once you know the schema, you should write the simulator part also yourself to generate petabytes of data. Don't wait for an actual data set for you to, actual business or actual customer to give you that large amount of data. You have to write a simulator once you know the schema, and generate the data set yourself. So that's the way you have to, any industry for that matter, that's the way how you can generate large data set. You can write simulators. You can, that's again a program which you write to, it can generate for any numbers. Use that data for your data modeling training, and then that will be helpful.
Perfect. Okay. And then we have a question from Shaloni, who's asked, do you see AI libraries being out in open source for small businesses to train and use with their own data? For example, a learning tool to train the AI engine to provide specific help in the context of learning only.
Okay. So this is something, I think a lot of open source or as services are also picking up, like how we say software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, machine learning as a service is something that is picking up. All these are 2 years, 5 years. It will take time to mature and stabilize. But machine learning as a service is where what do you say, you don't have the algorithm to make sense, you don't know you don't have the expertise, you only have the data, you use that service and make sense. So that's something that people are, different organizations or vendors are working on also. But similarly, there will be open source as well. But what I would say is, a lot of these learning, whatever use case you have, first see if you really want to use a AI algorithm, because a lot of simple things can be used through simple automation itself. We need not go for complicated algorithm to achieve what we want to. That's something that I keep telling people. Understand the use case. See if it is really required to use a AI engine there required. Then you go about using it. If I have to give some example, maybe with respect to using the cloud resources itself. If you're aware of the software industry, there are a lot of cloud providers. People think, oh, okay, I have to make use of all the cloud resources. That will be costly in some places. Maybe where you are using it only for a few hours, you want to switch off and on, maybe you can use it. If you are using it full time, you can rather get that system, keep it in your, get a dedicated system and use it. So depending on the use case, try to use the technology. So maybe for your education models or something, if it is a small one where you can do the automation yourself, you should go with that. Or there will be open sources, there will be as a service, machine learning as a service available, which can be used.
Oh, okay, great. So there are a couple of questions all around, how AI will affect different industries. So maybe I can list out the industries one by one, and you can tell the audience how you think these industries will be affected by or grow along with AI. One recurring one is the healthcare industry.
Yeah. Healthcare industry, I only see a lot of positives would happen rather than the negatives is what all these are my personal opinion based on what I have learned or what I have studied about, mainly because if you see a lot of image processing and analysis, it is not that I'm not saying that AI will be fully, it will be fully only AI driven. There will be a human to, fine tune it or give a final, doctor will be required to give a final verdict. But then a lot of predictions or a lot of imaging analysis, AI can really be helpful, because healthcare, every day we see so many new diseases coming up. We are not able to detect. Somebody somewhere in the world would have detected. So once you have that data with you, it will be easy it's easy. AI plays a major role in fine-tuning those things. But at the same time, there are regulatories that are required too, because these are sensitive information. If there is a leakage, it's going to be really painful, because patient information is more, or that needs to be more secure. So that's where we are saying there needs to be regulatory calls or regulations around the technology itself as to what can be used, how they have to use it. But in healthcare, definitely there are going to be more positive sides of identifying the diseases and help with and a lot we are seeing today with respect to robotic operations in surgeries, the precision that the AI can bring in. Those are all very powerful tool. If we use it in a positive way, it's really helpful in healthcare. But it's a
Absolutely.
long way. It's a long way. It's not anything immediate that we are talking about.
Right. And okay, a couple of other industries they've asked for are things like the service industry, more specifically tourism and hospitality.
Tourism and hospitality. Yeah, it will, if I have to say how AI can be used, so more to do with the customer experience part. So like, because we have the data, I think they are already using it there. So we have somebody traveled here, they stayed in this place, or 4 people, a family traveling, and they, based on the reviews, we do today based on reviews, all these bookings. So all those can be automated and suggestions can be given. That increases the experience of the customer. So somebody wants to travel somewhere, you get all the engine can do all the analysis based on past people who have traveled with all the data that is available and can give suggestions. That's improving the experience. At the end of the day, tourism particularly is about the experience. There are customers who actually does this. So it's, but the the thin line over there is it shouldn't overdo. That's where the regulations have to come in place. But there is a lot that the system can do to improve the experience of the customer. We feel happy when we are given with the correct suggestions and the relevant experience that we get. So improving the customer experience, it can definitely help.
Awesome. Okay. And then I think just because of time, we'll be able to take maybe 1 or 2 questions more. One question that we have is our API, like how ChatGPT allows you to, use APIs, are there other, is it available for other AI models? And would you recommend any?
No, there are other AI models. I mean, but I'm not sure if I've not used those APIs. There is this BARD. There are other. I'm not sure of what else is available. So once there is the API itself is a public interface that is available. So whatever is available, you can make use of it to see if you're getting the relevant data. Any software for that matter, if you see, there will be, if they are providing an API, they're allowing you to fetch the data. So that's how this OpenAI APIs are also available. So you want to try it out and see if it solves your problem, you can. Just that you have to install or log in with the credentials, see what is the what is the license model you're trying to do. And if you're if you're only going to understand what it is fine. If you're going to use it within your product and commercialize it, you have to look at the license part. There are different licenses available for all the APIs. Some of them you can just use it to query and see the data. Some of which, depending on the license, you can include it as part of your product and you use it for your customers. So you have to read through all that, and what you're doing, you have to be aware of. That's responsibility is with you. That's what I said.
Got it. And in general, maybe for the benefit of the audience, could you tell us a little bit about the reliance on the leads that that AI generates for you? How reliable can those be? This again is a recurring theme in some of the Q&A section. They've asked how reliant are the leads that are generated by AI for their businesses, and how much can they be trusted?
It depends on if you are using AI to generate leads itself. So that's something that I would say. It depends on how you use it. Okay. So if you are using AI to generate leads, you will be feeding it with the sources from where it had to generate leads. So those sources have to be reliable. Only then the engine will also give you reliable information. So it only depends on what you feed into that system. Because today, if you are using it for lead generation, and you say that you give you would have fetched the raw data from some sources and fed to the system. So that has to be because you're only feeding the system. If you are feeding trustworthy data, then the AI definitely gives trustworthy data. And the other thing is, maybe depending on how it is programmed, it will take some time for you to fine tune. Say, for example, that again takes a lot of time. At Zoho, if you see, we use our own training models. We use to train data for minimum 15 months, 12 months to 18 months before we take it out to customers. Because a lot of it requires, there will be some false alerts. You have to keep training it continuously. Once you get false information, what is the, where it went wrong. So you have to feed those systems also correctly. So it does involve a lot of background work for you to do proper fine tuning. So it depends on the data that you're feeding to the system.
All right. Awesome. I think that's some of the most questions that
I think I'm available in LinkedIn, Twitter, or you can email me. Anybody who has any other questions and you want me to answer, feel free to write to me. I'll be happy to answer them. And I've not touched anything on Zoho or Site 24/7 in this session, because the earlier two sessions we did give those informations, and I'm sure it's available to people. Zoho Startup Program, the kit that is available. Also, Site 24/7 does give for website and application monitoring. We do give a 1-year subscription for startups to use it free. So those things you can get it and pass it on to the team wherever required. I thought I've already done that twice, so I didn't include those slides also now.
There's just one more question I think we can maybe take. Shilpi has asked, what are some crucial points that could, I mean, Shilpi, from reading the question, this might seem like something a legal professional would be able to give you more advice on, but maybe we can also get Raji's perspective on this. So I just preface the question by saying that, but she's asked, what are some crucial points that should be part of a privacy policy and in terms of website use if a company is dealing into providing efficiency enhancement by using generative AI?
Yeah, this is actually a very broad.
It's a very, yes.
I mean, as you said, rightly said, I should have our legal team answer this question is what I would say. Okay. So important things is in any privacy policy or terms of the website, you have to be open about what you're doing with the data that is being collected. So that's what customers expect. So the data that whatever software you are in, depending on the software, the data collection will vary. So you're collecting some data from customers. Are you giving the right to the customer to erase it completely? Or are you giving what you're doing with that data that is generated have to be explicitly in one way or the other mentioned in the terms document. And the legal words of mentioning it, legal team is the expert at doing it, because we would talk in layman's term, they will talk in the legal term. So are with the generative AI. If you are using generative AI, so how can you put that? I mean, using generative AI, what are some things that you are doing with the product? You will have to explain to your legal team, and they will be able to put that in the corresponding legal words, because the legal terminologies are very crucial. One sentence will never end and it will go on. It will have 10 different things. We'll have to sit and decode as to what this means. So just be open about what you are, because the product side only you will know. Legal team will not know what you are doing. So it involves both the teams sitting together and talking about what is that you're collecting, what is that you're, how is that, what is that you're using, and that has to be put in a right way in your privacy policy and terms document.
Awesome. So I think that was a very robust session. We had one of the highest engagement levels we've seen so far in any of our online sessions. And I just want to take this moment to thank you, Raji, and the entire Zoho team that we coordinated with. And, I think it's a great kickoff to start up Essentials Week with only bigger and more engaging sessions to come. Thank you so much, Raji. It was a great time with you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And for all those of you who dialed in, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. We have 4 more sessions throughout the week. And I think from what Raji has told us, we'll see her as well in some of the sessions. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all. Thank you all for joining.